Milford Board of Education, November 20th, 2018, regular board meeting. If you'd join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And thank you. Okay, first we have a presentation from a wonderful organization / club group at New Milford High School on names.
And I see, is Mr. Nathan going to lead the charge here? First of all, thank you for coming out tonight. I had the privilege back a couple of weeks ago to sit in and observe this program, which is sponsored by the Anti-Defamation League and has been presented here at the high school for quite a while. Organized and presented by juniors and seniors, and sophomores basically were the audience for this. And I'll have a few words more to say about it after you've heard from these young people and from Mr. Nathan. But let me just tell you now, it was one of the most impressive presentations that I've seen in any high school audience in a long, long time. So thank you very much, Mr. Nathan, for coming out and sharing this with the board and the community. The floor is yours.
Thank you. We enjoyed having you there that day, and we appreciate the invitation to come today. We appreciate the board's support, central office's support, and the high school administration support. I'm going to turn it over to two of our student panelists that day. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the program. So we have two seniors here, Tiffany Desereau and Bridget Fedigan. And number 3, Alyssa Lombardo, a junior, is making an entrance now.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Names has been at New Milford High School for 17 years, and it's with the Anti-Defamation League, and it's really powerful, and our focus is to work on building bridges and connections with students and really understand how stuff does happen and how people aren't alone, and things that we do to try to be allies instead of bystanders.
Yeah, as Tiffany said, this year our theme was building bridges. What that means is that our discussion focused on creating friendships, not just in school but out of school as well, making those classroom friends your everyday friends. And also we had our shirt designed to show a bridge being built. Liam Lacey designed the shirt. And I personally chose to get involved with names because when I saw the assembly my sophomore year, it was so impactful to see how it brought everyone together, and it just really touched me in a way, and I always just knew I wanted to get involved with it because it meant a lot to me.
We have been partnering with the ADL to present the NAMES program at New Milford High School for 17 years. And I chose to get involved in NAMES personally because I came into high school from Sherman, and I didn't know anyone, and I just felt so left out. And right after names, I felt like our grade actually came together. And personally, in the breakout rooms, with our advisories, we all shared something very personal, and I just feel like I made so many friends in that program alone. I feel like I wanted to get involved so I can do that for someone else and make other people feel like they fit in.
I chose to participate in names because, just as these ladies have said, my sophomore year, it really did impact me. It showed how the sophomore class did come together as a community because we're all in cliques, and it just brought people together through experiences that they've had, and it felt good for us, I know myself, to be panelists and watch other people in the crowd really feel in their eyes you could see that what we were doing really did affect some people for the better. That's it.
Thank you.
I just, another word or two from me, and then if you have comments or questions from board members, but the things that really impressed me were these young people and other panelists that were up on the stage. We're talking about deeply personal experiences of being shunned, isolated, teased, bullied, for things that really are beyond our control. And I thought it took a lot of nerve for you all to get up there and talk about those things. And the audience, which is 300 plus high school sophomores, you would think in a crowd that size, there'd be a couple of people who would have to make a wise remark or have something smart to say. You could have heard a pin drop. And then the next thing that the facilitator did was said, now we're going to have open mic, and anybody from the audience can come down. And I'm thinking, nobody's going to come down, because a dozen kids immediately came down, and they would have been more if they hadn't run out of time. And then from the large group session, they went to the cafeteria, broke up into small groups with facilitators. I think, Craig, you were one of the facilitators that day. And I just thought the quality of the presentation, the personal nature of the commentary, and the deeply respectful reception that it got from the sophomores who were present was really commendable. So thank you again for doing it and for sharing it tonight. I don't know if any board members want to say a word or two or comment.
Thank you very much.
I think that's it.
Continued success, I'm sure.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, this is our recognition part of the meeting, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Tracy for the National Merit Program,
Okay.
and then our Stars of the Month.
As you may know, the National Merit Scholarship Program has been recognizing outstanding scholars from across the country since 1955. And the awards are based on performance on the National Merit Qualifying Test. There are over 1.5 million students that are eligible and who participate in this examination process. Less than 35,000 out of that 1.5 million reach commendation status. And we have here tonight one of our own who has in fact reached commendation status in the National Merit Scholarship Program, and that is Sean Murphy. And Sean, would you please come up so we can recognize you? Can we ask you to say a word or two about your experience here at the high school and your plans for the future?
Sure. So I came into the high school and I wasn't really expecting, when everybody thinks about their high school years, they think about the most transformative years of their life. And I thought, that's a bunch of hogwash. It wasn't necessarily going to be the case for me. But I came in and I was actually just looking back on the 4 years that I've been blessed to have, almost 4 years now. It's absolutely been 100% true. This is the most transformative period in your life. And I've grown so much as not only a student, but as a person. And so my plans for the future, I'm going to hopefully continue down this path, and not only with my academic pursuits, but hopefully trying to give back to the people who have given me such a positive experience in the high school. And hopefully I'll continue to do that throughout college and the rest of my life. So thank you so much.
And I learned something about Sean tonight that I didn't know. Craig was kind enough to introduce me, and Sean was explaining that he's taken the lead in an effort on behalf of high school students to reach out to youngsters for whom English is not their first language and who need help to make friends and learn the language and get connected to their courses. I just thought that was fantastic on top of what you've done on this exam. So good for you. Thank you. Do you want to introduce your parents so they can take a little credit here?
So Patrick Murphy is my dad, and Karen Murphy is my mom.
All right. Congratulations to both of you. You got to get a photograph here for the record here. So how are we doing this? We'll get it.
You can be in the
Get it
middle,
in the
both
middle?
of you.
Like this? Okay.
Yep, perfect. On three, 1, 2, 3. Very nice. Congratulations.
Congratulations again. Good luck to you. It's always nice to start these meetings off with a lot of good news. And it's easy to find in this school district. There is a lot of good news. Next up, Mr. Lawson and I are going to honor our Stars of the Month. And when I call your name, if you could please come up and join us up front here. And first we have Samantha Gaddy-Tisi from the Schaghticoke Middle School. Samantha. And I'm going to read for each of these people a brief comment from one of the people that nominated them for their recognition tonight. Congratulations, Sam. Welcome. Please here's what the nominator said about Samantha. I'm nominating this teacher for helping my daughter in ways that no one has before. She uses practical, hands-on work that incorporates the topics, and she gives real-world examples as well. That has made a big difference in many children's lives, I'm sure. Next is Jenna Goudis from the Northville School. Jenna? Jenna's positive attitude and ability to be a team player make her a valuable member of the NES staff. Congratulations, Jenna. Next, we have Nicole Hearing from Hill and Plain School. Nicole? Nicole's behind-the-scenes work to keep map testing and PBIS running is so appreciated. She's always available to help. Next, from the Sarah Noble School, we have Margaret Jones. Margaret. Ms. Jones goes above and beyond every single day to accommodate all of her students. There just aren't enough words to thank her for all that she has done and continues to do. Then from New Milford High School, Colleen Peterson. Colleen, come on up. Colleen is enthusiastic and works tireless hours, including many after school, working with students who need that extra push. She is a veteran teacher who loves what she does and shows it every day in her classroom. And finally, we have Missy Smith from the central office team. Missy, come on up. And her nominator says, I have had multiple issues with health insurance that I needed help with. That's a lot of fun, right, health insurance? Each time, Missy has handled the issue immediately, and my questions were answered to my satisfaction clearly and concisely. She is conscientious and always personable when communicating. Thank you, Missy. I also want to, is Tracy O'Connor with us tonight? Jason O'Connor? Tracy O'Connor, sorry. Tracy is with the Ingersoll Motor Group, and we usually bring her up here if she's here because one of these folks is going to be the lucky winner for a month's worth of a brand new car to drive around. And it depends on who picks which box right now. So let's see what happens.
Okay, we'll do it on three. Three.
Who got the star? Oh, there you go. You get to try out a new car for a month. They're going to probably hope you're going to buy it for them.
Thank you.
Since Tracy is not here, Mr. Lawson will do the honors. It's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all for the work that you did. Oh, we got to get a picture. One more picture.
Once you ask them to go for break, you can also join in. We'll take it now, and then I'll take individuals.
Oh, okay.
All right? So everyone, nice group picture?
We're gonna make
Nice and close?
Okay.
Thanks. 3, 1, 2, 3. But please stay for photos right over here, okay?
While we're eating, I'll take one.
Okay, we're going to recess for just a couple of moments. If you would feel free to have a snack, what have you.
Maybe we could just clarify that, David. I think.
We'll reconvene. Thank you.
Let's move along.
We got Joe. We didn't say about me. Gee, tell them to say hi.
Thank you, everybody. We will be reconvening. Thank you. I don't do that. I'm gonna do one. Thank you, everybody. We'll reconvene. Thank you. Okay. All right, we will follow up our recognition with public comment. Whereas nobody signed up, but you don't have to sign up to speak. So if anybody would like to address the board, please feel free to come up with any concerns, positive, negative, in between. Okay. Sensing none, we will move on to the PTO report, which is always a happy time.
Northville Elementary PTO held their annual Spooktacular event the Friday before Halloween and also used the event to kick off their Scholastic Book Fair that ran during conferences. Hill and Plain PTO is gearing up to start their Scholastic Book Fair with a family fun night event after the Thanksgiving break. The Scotticoke PTO is getting ready to hold its Scholastic Book Fair and also kicking off the annual Battle of the Books with a pizza party. The high school PTO sponsored a movie night at Bank Street Theater and has many other ideas in the works for other fundraisers. Sarah Noble PTO has wrapped up their Apex Leadership fundraiser. As part of the fundraiser, students received lessons, like pep talks, about a lot of important character traits that align with New Milford Public School District initiatives. The theme was strong, selfless, trustworthy, refueling, overcoming, next level, and grateful. The students asked for sponsors to pledge funds toward 36 acts of kindness. This had a huge impact, not just in the school, but in the greater New Milford community as well. Students were spied giving coffee to folks on that cold and rainy election day. The PTO also sponsored activities throughout to help students get their 36 acts of kindness in, such as making bookmarks for the New Milford Literacy Project and thank you cards for veterans. Grad Party had a very successful event at Haunted Harrybrook, which helped to raise funds for the event to be held on the evening of graduation. The New Milford PTO is pleased to announce Camilla's Cupboard held a fundraising breakfast in late October. Several local businesses provided raffle prizes for the event, and Oddfellows Hall was so gracious to donate their space and all the food for the event. In addition, they have nearly 100 children signed up for break and blizzard bags. Camilla's also held a distribution of Thanksgiving break bags last Friday evening. Again, the outpouring of donations was so very generous. Thanksgiving bags will also be provided to local daycares that regularly receive weekend food packs, bringing the total distribution to 125. Townwide PTO held its first annual Sip and Shop fundraiser last Friday evening. There were over 30 artisans and vendors to shop from and fabulous raffle prizes. We were able to raise enough funds to provide one more scholarship to a graduating senior next spring. Discount cards are still available and would make a great holiday gift. Thank you, and I would like to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And our student representatives.
Hello, how is everyone?
Good evening. We had our names assembly, which was a huge hit. And just to go a tiny bit further into it, Elizabeth and I, we were both facilitators within the names program, which means that within our breakout groups, the people that were in our small breakout groups can reach to us at any time throughout their high school career, that we can keep in touch, and they can reach for us and ask for advice or any help through anything that they're going through. And that to get further in depth with the names program, there's a Fight Against Hate program for all juniors. And that program just goes further into depth and prepares for life outside of high school.
So the Math Honor Society has been fundraising so we could give a scholarship to a senior at the end of this year. One of the first fundraisers we always do was the send a pumpkin to a friend fundraiser. So during the lunch waves, students could go in for a few dollars, get a pumpkin, and write a card to a friend to cheer up their day a little bit for Halloween.
The fall sports, senior nights were a huge success. Tomorrow is the football team's last game against New Fairfield.
Seniors recently ordered their caps and gowns. That was exciting, a little bit scary, but I think we're all a little bit ready to reach that moment.
November 5th and the 6th were parent-teacher conferences.
November 7th, we had the HEAT program, so it was an opioid use awareness program. We had a DEA agent come in and a district attorney come in and talk about what they've seen in their jobs, and it really did open up our eyes a little bit to what opioids do to not only people's physical bodies, but to their emotional selves as well.
And on November 8th, students received this year's photos for the yearbook, if they ordered any.
The National Honor Society just today finished their annual Thanksgiving food drive. All donations, which include food and like feminine products, diapers, stuff like that, it all went to Loaves and Fishes this afternoon.
November 27th would be the Varsity Senior Sports Awards Night held in the high school's theater.
And just a reminder, the Dramatics Club is making their Game of Tiaras show, and that will be December 6th and 7th, 5th and 6th, sorry. On top of that, auditions for the all-school musical Footloose have happened, and I think today the cast list came out. Stage managers were picked already. And finally, Math Honor Society is preparing for their Tape a Teacher, which is a fundraiser where you can, for a few dollars, buy pieces of tape, and I think right now we are looking for a few either administrators or a few teachers to tape against the cafeteria wall. So
Why are you looking at me?
Something you might like.
I mean, if you're up for it.
Well, we'll talk.
And we wanted to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, approval of minutes. Need a motion to approve the following Board of Education minutes, Board Workshop minutes, October 16th, 2018.
So moved.
I'll second. Those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. I need a motion to approve the following Board of Education meeting minutes. Regular board meeting minutes, October 16, 2018.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? And abstentions? That'll be 1, 2. JT, do you abstain?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Probably do that.
Thank you. And let's vote twice now. And from here, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you. And let me welcome Mayor Bass, who's with us tonight, for a couple of items of mutual interest. Thank you, Pete, for being here. Since we last met, I had the opportunity to join with the mayor and also Assistant Principal Eric Williams and a representative of the Northwest Regional Workforce Board to talk about training in the area of manufacturing and some possibilities right here in New Milford. A couple of students from the high school were also able to join us, and we're going to be following up on that to see if something good can happen in our town with respect to helping young people get ready for careers in manufacturing, so that was good. I also was on hand when Mrs. Manchin's second grade class from Hill and Plain School made their way over to the town hall and helped to inaugurate something called a tower garden, which I had never experienced before. But if any of you are gardeners, you may know about these sort of 6 or 8 foot tall towers where you put plants and it's got special watering and lighting. And I haven't been back to see it, Pete, since we started it. But the kids had a blast. The mayor took them on a tour of the town hall, and we'll have to get them back to see what happens with all the seedlings that they brought over and planted. I have a pictures I'll pass around to board members here, a couple of the Tower Garden ceremony. And also, a couple of weeks ago, I was able to join Christy Martin, our adult ed facilitator, and meet some of the adult students who are taking part in the English as a Second Language program. And you won't be surprised to know that many of these students are also parents of young people in our school system. And so we want to pay special attention to them as they deal with the challenges of language and culture and finding a job and making their way as contributing citizens to our community. But a very strong and important opportunity that we offer to people here who come to Connecticut or come to New Milford and need a hand up with learning the language. So that was a good evening. The faculty at Hill and Plain School were kind enough to invite me over to do my PowerPoint presentation on choice theory, which I'm always ready to share with people who are interested in understanding the psychology of human behavior and how we can influence other people, including, of course, children and young people, to do the things that they need to do to be prepared for success in life. So I thank them for that, and several of them have indicated an interest in maybe forming a little book group where we'll get together every week or two, read a chapter of Dr. Glasser's work, and talk a little bit about what that has to do with our lives as educators. The mayor and I were also together last week to welcome Spencer Ceruto as our new chief of police, and he seems to be off and running, and we already do a number of things with the police department, as this board knows, including the departments providing school resource officers to our schools and collaborating with us on the juvenile review panel, where we try to divert first-time juvenile offenders into a non-judicial program where they can hopefully learn the lesson that needs to be learned and stay out of trouble in the days ahead. So it was great to meet the new chief. I think he's from Waterford, right? Watertown, okay. And maybe we'll have him here some night so that you all can meet him if you haven't already. Bill Dahl and I were able to get out and represent the school district at the annual CABE CAPS convention in Groton. And Alicia DeCorpo was also there to present on social and emotional learning. And I also sat in on a technology standards session that our former superintendent Josh Smith presented. So nice to mingle with other people that are doing the work that you and I are doing across the state, and to learn a little bit from others. Mandy, thank you for inviting me to your PTO session last night. My first chance to meet all of the school leaders and hear about the projects that you're undertaking and the generosity that we hear about every month at this table for our kids. Thank you for that. We continue our work on the fiscal 20 budget, and barring other guidance from this board, my intention is to work with Anthony on a format similar to what you saw last year, with some additional detail in accounts that I understand were the object of special scrutiny last year. So we're not going to create a whole giant book going into tremendous detail on every line in the budget, but we will produce additional detail for those aspects of the budget that, at least in the recent past, you've expressed an interest in digging into. And then beyond that, of course, if you or the mayor or other town officials have questions, you'll send us back with our homework, and we will do it. Ms. Baldelli and I have decided to reopen the search for a technology director. We did a lot of searching and interviewing. We weren't quite able to land a candidate that was to our liking, so we are re-advertising and researching. And this is my chance to thank Steve Kern, who's a member of our technology team who has stepped up to function on an interim capacity so we can buy the time to find the new director that we need. And lastly, I'll mention a number of facilities items, and Kevin Munret and his team have been busy, and you'll be hearing more detail about some of these tonight. The temporary repairs to your high school roof have been finished, so we're all buttoned up for the winter. Bids for the permanent roof replacement are in, and we'll be talking about that later tonight. We'll also be awarding a bid tonight for the oil tank at this school here at Sarah Noble. We are anxiously awaiting the delivery of the above-ground tank for the Hill and Plain School. Next week, I think, we're hoping to see it. And shortly after that, we'll be starting the digging for the tank at the Lillis Administration Building. So all of this relates to meeting our obligations to the state to retire tanks that are 30 years or more old before they start leaking and causing other kind of problems. So it's been a busy month. Thank you. That's it.
All right, well, first and foremost, budget's coming up on us very quickly. I urge board members to pass on any thoughts or recommendations that you may have to the superintendent's office. The sooner the better, so if you feel strongly about any of those things. The other thing are the, most of the happenings over the last month or so are included in the agenda this evening, particularly with some of the collaboration with capital projects. So that's where we'll be going there, from there. Okay, and with that being said, we'll move on to committee reports. Okay, facilities, Brian.
Well, once again, my thunder's been slightly stolen. We will be talking about the roofs tonight. It was a big discussion of our meeting. My meeting ran longer than usual, almost a full 45 minutes. And it is a weighty discussion. And we'll also be talking about the Sarah Noble roof tonight. And the 5-year capital plan was presented to us, which is always good with budget season coming up. And that's really, it was a very good meeting, but we'll be talking more about those roofs.
Thank you. Operations, Wendy.
Okay, as well, many of the usual items are on for action this evening. There are a few that were discussed that are not on for action, but besides the customary monthly reports and the personnel exhibits and the gifts and donations for which you're appreciative, we do have the bid awards for the Sarah Noble tank and the special transportation services. We have the grant approval for pre-K kindergarten transition. We have an activity stipend request, which under all of these, I'm sure there'll be discussion, so to keep the meeting moving along, and I won't go into too much detail, the activity stipend. And then what we did have a discussion over a couple of things. We had an update on the superintendent search update of where we will be getting those bids back in and hopefully getting the board together and progressing with that. So we're right in that timeline. The other two other issues, we had an update on our capital reserve balance, just where we are. If boards coming into budget season are to look at what we have in our account as a snapshot, it is $449,006.09 approximately, but that'll give you an idea. That is what's currently in the account. And then we had a discussion, as Dr. Tracy mentioned, about the budget format. We're going to, unless we hear from board members that there's some request for a change, we're going to keep using the format that we have. If any questions come forward for line item, further detail, we'll be happy to supply it. But if you do have concerns, please get that request
How about
in.
font size?
Well, we'll work on that too. But hopefully get
Bigger
back
every
to the
year.
board. And
This needs an extra word.
we had a rather full agenda for which you'll see here all throughout the evening for discussion.
Okay, thank you very much. And policy, Mr. Shem.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Not too much on tonight's agenda for policy. Two things. Again, we continued our march through the 1000 series there on community relations, and again, keeping our focus on reviewing, revising, or possibly removing policies. You'll see two policies for tonight for first review. 1250 is visits to schools. What we've actually done there, the subcommittee is moving on the idea of combining policy 1250 plus 1251, and actually integrating them together. And the thought being, once we, if we get a revision there to 1250, then we can actually remove 1251. So that will be one of my crowning achievements as a policy subcommittee chair, to actually remove one of these many, many policies. 1321 you'll also see for first review with public performance by students. There was some slight change in language. Again, I thank Pat Silverman here on doing such a nice job with the red text here. It really highlights what our changes were, the strikeouts and whatnot. So you'll see that extra red ink there helps clarify some of the language that we're moving forward on that. And it's just those two. And I would just ask subcommittee members to, December 4th is our our next meeting, subcommittee meeting, and I would just ask, indicate your attendance there, because we do have a pretty ambitious agenda to try to march through the remaining 1,000 series at that meeting. So that's, we're setting that agenda now, but that's the hope. Okay?
Okay, thank you, JT.
Thanks. Thank you.
And Committee on Learning, Tammy?
Okay, we had no review of curriculum, so we moved right into our presentation on coaching, which, thank you so much for that. It was really nice to see the evolution of the coaching positions. There's been a lot of comments lately about the coaches, especially around budget season and their effectiveness and how they're working with teachers and if they're really helping. And to meet the coaches and to hear what their plans of action have been, it was very inspiring. The coaches, first of all, Mrs. DeCorpo said she has visited every school to speak to the faculty about the role of the coaches and how their work aligns with professional learning standards. Each of the coach that was there that evening presented specifics about the work they're doing in their respective schools. The coaches meet teachers in their classrooms to attend to their individual strengths, needs, and interests, and model instruction in the classroom with students so the teachers can see teaching in action. And I think that was one of the areas where a lot of teachers were saying that they were lacking, where they really couldn't see it being taught in action. So it's really nice to see that that work is being done. Coaches do work with teachers to create self-selected learning goals. This work takes place one-on-one with teachers. They attend PLC meetings. They host professional development for teachers, and they work with teachers in their classrooms. The K through 2 coaches work with teachers once every 12-day cycle, while the 3 to 8 coaches work with teachers once every 6-day cycle. And the coaches are able to attend regional and national conferences and then therefore bring ideas and suggestions back to the teachers. The coaches are also helping teachers by creating pacing guides for curriculum alongside teachers, work to norm assessments, and support teachers with grading practices, writing reports, report card companions to support teachers, and rewriting implement assessments to better align work with the data. So there's a lot more in the minutes. It was a really great presentation. It was really nice to hear about how the work with the coaches is moving along and developing. We also had a short discussion on possible budget drivers for this upcoming budget season. Basically, the phonics pilot, which will actually result in some small savings. The NGSS science assessment, teacher training will be needed, so they're looking into different ways to provide that. And Mrs. DeCorpo shared that she and Dr. Tracy are exploring additional administrative support in the curriculum area through budget. Help is desperately needed to keep the district on track with curriculum initiatives and implementation. We will not be having a COL meeting in December. So therefore, JT, if you run a little late with policy, that's not a problem.
Thank you.
And since we do not have it, subcommittee meetings in January because of budget, we'll be reconvening our COL meetings in February, where we hope to see some curriculum, right? So that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And in advance, Eileen?
Good, there's two things of interest. The Access South has now gone to providing an after-school program for some kids there, and we have 4 students down there in Access South. So that's interesting for them. It's 2 days a week down there. And the other point I'd like to point out, make clear, is on this sheet, you see how much money we send to Access South. So it's a big component of our budget, and they frequently win the transportation bids because they can combine things and make them most efficiently budget-friendly. Okay?
Thank you. And CAVE. Well, the CAVE just held their convention, and I'd like to congratulate Mrs. Fallenbach, who was recognized there for your many years of service.
You as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're
That was
welcome.
a little awkward. I wasn't sure how to handle that one. And the other thing with CAVE, they in constantly keeping us appraised of new laws and situations and regulations that arise even as new laws and regs are made. So that falls with you, and that's why we see many of those. And that's what we have, because many came into effect October 1st. So we'll be seeing maybe some changes there. And from there, we'll go to negotiations. Wendy?
We have We have an issue this evening under one of the negotiations for an executive session. We also have two other bargaining units that we hope to bring forward to the board in the near future. And as we wrap up this coming year for negotiations, I've said this before, it's a tremendous commitment to serve on that committee, and it's a lot of time. You learn a lot, but you get so much out of it. So I'd like to thank everybody who comes to the table for that, very much so.
Thank you. Discussion, possible action.
Oh, magnet school.
Magnet school.
Magnet school, this is a big one.
Yeah.
We're still waiting for that fall meeting. It's almost winter, but it's done out of the superintendent's office, so the magnet school has no control. I call them and they say, well, the superintendent hasn't scheduled yet, so we're waiting.
Guess that's why I skipped it.
Yeah, so do I. Nothing to report.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, discussion and possible action. I need a motion to enter into executive session in order to discuss negotiations with respect to collective bargaining health insurance, reopen our negotiations with respect to collective bargaining with the teachers union, and to invite into the session Dr. Stephen Tracy, May Baldelli, Anthony Giovanni, and Mayor Pete Bass.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. I'd like to.
That's cool.
I'd like to reconvene. I need a motion to accept the settlement reached with the teachers' union regarding reopening negotiations as recommended by the board's negotiating team, and for the board chair to execute the revised collective bargaining agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Sensing none. Those in favor? And those opposed? Thank you. Moving on, I need a motion to approve the implementation of the New Milford Substance Abuse Prevention Council survey and the requested donation of $1,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Yes, sir.
I actually read the whole survey. Call me paranoid. I have a couple concerns. One, I think it's far too extensive, too many questions, and it should be much more concise. It's a substance abuse survey, and more than half of it's not about substance abuse. They are difficult questions. There's no doubt there. I also have a concern that depending on how some of those questions get answered by students, that it would raise an issue or concern that the survey would get beyond whoever is handling it and put a student in a difficult position if they're truthful and honest in answering the survey. And then we have, I mean, there's literally tons of questions about criminal activity. And if someone sees it, do they then have an obligation to take action that's not in the interest of that student? So I have a tremendous amount of concern with that. I can even pull an example out of it. If, or if I guess I'm allowed, I don't even know if I'm allowed, yeah, it's open. Is it available to the public? Huh?
It's anonymous. I mean, the survey. You're talking about the survey.
Yeah, I have problems with it, so I'm not going to support it. One, I think it's just far too lengthy. Two, we want to move it into advisory, which are smaller groups. I think it causes more an issue of identifying who answered the survey and how they answered it in those smaller advisory settings, as opposed to in the past it was done in the gym in large groups. I understand we want to get a handle on substance abuse, but I just think it's an overreach.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
I wanted to take the opportunity to let you know that in the audience tonight is
Thank you.
Justin, pardon me?
Thank you,
Oh,
because I had forgot to recognize him in the
Justin
operation.
Culmer, who is the chair of the New Milford Substance Abuse Prevention Council, and Jason O'Connor, who is the vice chair. And with the chairman's permission, they may want to comment on some of the points that have been made. I just wanted to reiterate that the survey is anonymous, so that we can encourage youngsters to answer frankly. There is an effort here to have comparability with the same survey that was done a couple of years ago. So that's the reason that it is as extensive as it is, because and I'll stand corrected if the gentleman, but I believe the effort is to ask the same questions of a similar population, and so as to see if there are any trends or changes. And then finally, we're going to alert parents to the fact that this administration is coming up, give them access to the full survey if they wish to see it, and the opportunity to excuse their youngsters if they would rather that they not participate. But if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman?
I'm going to defer to the parliamentarian. This hasn't been, this is a meeting in public and not a public meeting, that,
It's listed on the agenda. I think if board members have questions, since we have representatives, they can certainly answer them
Okay.
rather than a presentation.
Right.
But I think it certainly is listed on the agenda. We're not going off the agenda.
Yeah.
But I think if board members, through their discussion, have questions that can't be answered by the superintendent, it would be prudent to have those there that answer them correctly and
Thank you.
get them on the record.
okay, any questions or comments?
Could we just review the process? Because I apologize, that's what I meant to say, Dr. Tracy. This came before operations first, and there was the minutes will show some of the procedure on the survey. It is my understanding that this survey was given 2 years ago. It's to 8, 10, and 12, that the survey that was sent to the questions have remained the same or similar to 2 years ago, correct? And when the survey was given 2 years ago, the question was asked at operations, was there an opportunity to opt out, and was it available for parents to see if they chose to? And I believe it was made available, and some of the commentary was perhaps not as available, not as convenient, but it is available for parents to see.
I'm going to use a letter very similar to the one that Mr. Smith distributed 2 years ago at this time to alert parents to the nature and purpose of the survey, to invite them if they wish to see every question, and then to opt out if they so choose.
And how many opt-outs did we have the last time?
I don't know, do either of you gentlemen know how many people opted out?
We had 3.
3, okay.
So my question is, will we see the final results? Will we see the comparison between the last one 2 years ago? Does that come to us as the board?
Can I stand?
Sure, Sam.
My name is Jason O'Connor. I'm the vice chair of the Substance Abuse Prevention Council. I participated in the administration of the survey 2 years ago. So after the administration of the survey, we held a public forum disseminating the results of this survey, and it was actually held in the cafeteria at Sarah Noble. I held focus groups, other council members held focus groups. So this was a very public event, and the data was publicly available for parents.
I think, may I read? In other words, would it be sent directly to this board?
To the board.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
No, we'll arrange a presentation for this board
Yes,
as soon
okay,
as
of the
we can.
results, yeah.
Okay.
And the comparisons. for
But
the
on
2
a
years.
public forum, it was also broken down
Yeah.
in an event
Right,
Excellent.
yeah. they
for the
had-
parents
they
to
had an
come
event
and
for everybody
community
last
members
time.
if they wanted
Okay.
to be there.
No, we can certainly do something specifically for this board once the data is
Yeah, be
assembled.
interesting.
Okay, any other?
David?
Yes.
So is there any plan internally to address the questions or to address the responses in, say, the advisory, or like, what are we going to do with it once we have the information?
Ed?
Am I allowed?
Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to the administration of the survey, the way it was done 2 years ago was it was in a gym class. And so the issue with that was I believe it was the 10th graders took it before winter break, and then the 12th graders took it after winter break. And speaking with the teacher, Erica Keene, who kind of administered and oversaw that, there was an issue with the data relevance of that, and, kind of the teachers participating weren't briefed properly on the, importance of this survey. So we were looking for a better avenue to administer the survey. So we were thinking of maybe doing it, and we were looking for feedback on the Board of Education with this, of possibly doing it during advisory. So you have advisory teachers that would be, in the sense, we would do a briefing with them and explain the purpose of the survey and what we're looking for. Now, this survey can be done on a phone, it's electronic, and again, it's anonymous. It takes about 25 minutes, and so we were thinking maybe advisory would be the best option since all students meet in advisory. We're open for recommendations from the Board of Ed as, to how, properly to do it in the school. Again, you guys are the experts in the school, and we were just thinking about the issues about how it was administered 2 years ago. So that's, once we get that data, and then we send it right to the Board of Ed and to all the other, pertinent people involved in it.
So what are you going to do with the information after? I mean, are you going to offer classes? I mean, how is this going to help our students?
So, as a representative on the council, I work for the New Milford Youth Agency. So I took the data and I ran various programs on anxiety, suicide awareness, and kind of stress relief, because I saw the need for that. So the whole purpose would be to kind of see the relevant, and this isn't just a measure of our risks and our negatives in our students. It shows the pro-social and it shows the really good benefits that our students have. Like, it really outlined adult-student relationships and peer-to-peer influence. And so the purpose is for the participating parties to take this information and to really kind of take the data and say how we can help our youth. Again, it's kind of the point to see what in 8th grade goes to 10th grade to 12th grade, to see trends, if they're going up, if they're going down. It's basically just data collection, so relevant agencies serving youth in town cannot swing in the dark, basically. So we can kind of have some kind of data collection and providing relevant programming.
Part of the answer to your question, I think, depends on what we see. And so our
Correct.
obligation is to look at it, see what we think it means, and then what, as a school system, what is our obligation to respond to whatever the problems or opportunities we might see. We're going to have to see the data and share it with you, and then figure out, all right, what do we make of it, and what should we do about it?
Joe?
Well, my next question was, what's the purpose? But you answered that. And that
Yeah.
probably should be the first thing we hear, is what's the purpose?
So it's, and I know you, Joseph?
Yes.
So Joseph, it basically measures, it's not, so the Substance Abuse Prevention Council is sponsoring it, but the whole point of the survey is to assess 40 developmental assets within the students in our community. So it's measuring external assets, which are basically community systems, maybe like macro systems in the sense of parents, community, neighbors, and how the students kind of feel in their community system. Then it measures internal assets, which are basically their thoughts and feelings and perceptions on these assets. So it's kind of, you're measuring the whole well-being of the student. So it asks everything from, do you say hi to your neighbor, talk to your neighbor kind of informally like that, to, you know, your past 30-day substance abuse with marijuana. So that way it's kind of gathering a comprehensive measure of a well-being of the child. That's the goal. If that makes sense.
If I may, to piggyback off that, the goal is to better orchestrate systems between the school system and the community to identify areas where we could come together and help support needs that arise from the survey. I had the opportunity to write a grant at the state level called Title IV, and there's a couple of different community agencies that I tied into this grant. In that grant, I wrote that if the board approves of this survey to be administered in the second year, that the $1,000 cost of the survey would come out of that grant potentially if you've approved and the state approves. And also I set aside funding to support implementation efforts at the school levels to support anything that we see that we want to take action on as it comes out of the survey. So as you look over those questions and you think about what trends might ensue, we can then look when the survey data comes out to see what are we doing well, where do we have areas that we need to grow, who do we need to involve, and we'll have some funding to back that up.
Okay, thank you. Angie?
So kind of to follow up on your question, and, you know, not all kids go to the youth agency.
Correct.
So are we sharing these results with social workers, guidance counselors and things? Are they doing some kind of PD on this? I mean, how are we using this kind of with our boots on the ground in the school?
So last year, or 2 years ago, because it was the first administration, that data collection and sharing was done at a more global level. But now, when you have 2 years of data year over year, the plan really is to have them take a look at it, come up with some areas that they've identified, present to various groups, present to you, and then share that information in some way at the building level with the necessary people who could help support an effort to orchestrate around those needs and support kids while they're with us during the day and then with an extension outside the school day, wherever we can. So we have to do a better job with this administration of bringing that information down to the building level so that we're all at the table being able to offer up suggestions and celebrating what we're doing well so we could replicate it.
Tammy?
So the last time this happened was 2 years ago, right?
Correct.
Okay.
2016.
So you're always taking the 8th, the 10th, and the 12th.
Yes.
You're missing a whole bunch of grades in between. For instance, my daughter's in 7th grade.
Mhm.
She will never take the survey. So why do we keep serving the same kids every 2 years?
In the sense is that this would be pretty intense to do it every year. In that sense, you have a massive student population to measure, and in my opinion, the 2 years, it correlates, because it's a teen assessment, like a high school assessment, and so they're looking for the trends in 8th, 10th, and 12th. Because if you could start it at 5th grade, for this study.
Oh, I'm not saying start it earlier.
No, I'm saying it's
Why wouldn't you this year include
it's just
9th and 11th?
It's honestly just the parameters of this one data collection method. It's what the Search Institute created. It's evidence-based, and they found this to be the best way.
There has to be an assumption here, and I wasn't involved in the creation of the survey or the strategy of which grades and what years, but there's probably an assumption that there's not a dramatic difference, since we're not looking at individual kid results, we're looking at a sample of youngsters, and actually a pretty substantial sample, all of the youngsters in those grade levels, that there wouldn't be a dramatic difference between current 8th graders and what they would say and current 7th graders and what they would say.
There would be in Newtown, because you are missing that grade that was involved in standing up shooting. So they are now 7th graders. So they would, if you were doing that there, you would be missing that entire class who is much more impacted by that event than the other classes. It's just food for thought, because I just feel like you might, if something has happened, there's a lot of things going on globally that kids are aware of. If something is happening, it may be affecting a whole other class that you're not taking the temperature of.
Correct. I think, again, I think this is just the modality and the method of this one survey through the Search Institute, and then probably through funding issues. This survey is $2,500, so that'd be $2,500 every year. And I know our council doesn't have that money to put forward for that. And this is a survey used by all the region schools. So I know Brookfield, Bethel, New Fairfield, Newtown, Danbury all participate in this one survey. So it is practiced throughout the region. That's, all I can really answer on why this one survey was chosen in sense compared to like a 7th, 8th, 10th, kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. All right, any further relevant? Okay, thank you very much,
Thank you very
gentlemen.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Those in favor? And opposed? And abstain. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Okay, moving on. Moving on to Exhibit A, Personnel Certified. I need a motion to approve Exhibit A, Personnel Certified, Non-Certified Appointments, Resignations, and Leaves of Absence as of November 20th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
And any questions or comments
Clarification.
or clarification? Yes?
Will you send to the board, Ms. Baldelli, the strikeouts?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Just so we're clear on what we're voting on.
You will see a strikeout under the coaches page.
That's just that's my mistake. I have the revised one. Just give me a second. Okay, sorry. Page 5. Amy Bush. That was my mistake. She originally was recommended for this position and then withdrew. So this does not affect the coach that is the varsity dance coach. That's in place, that's working fine, and I'm sorry if that caused you any confusion when you
No,
saw
that's,
it.
I was only
We do
pointing it
have
out so people
That
knew
was
what they were
my-
voting on and
We
wasn't
pulled it,
concerned.
just, I don't know how it got there. My apology for that. off of
And that the
other
position
sheets.
was there, you know?
Yes, so it is going, it's doing very well, and so hopefully that won't cause too much of an alarm out in the community if they see there's no dance coach there, so I apologize. And the other strikeout is just someone who was not able to make the interview with me, so I expect to put her name back on probably in December once she has that interview. That is it for me.
Okay, those in favor? And that's unanimous, thank you. I need a motion to approve monthly reports. Budget position dated October 31, 2018. Revised purchase resolution D 716 and request for budget transfers.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Any questions or comments? Those in favor? And that's unanimous, thank you. Gifts and donations. I need a motion to accept gifts and donations. PTO Exhibit B in the amount of $3,300. I'll move that.
I'll second it.
Again, wonderful work by our PTO district-wide, and thanks to them. Those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. I need a motion to accept gifts and donations, CIAC, in the amount of $1,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? And those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. The SNIS oil tank. I need a motion to award the bid for the SNIS oil tank project to ETT Environmental in the amount of $97,000 and request that the town fund the project at the amount in their original budget motion of June 7th, 2018 in the amount of $103,980. Sorry. With the understanding that any unspent funds would be returned to the town at the conclusion of the project unless otherwise stipulated.
It's actually important. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Clarification,
You
just
first.
for that difference?
Go ahead.
Just a clarification on the difference there between the bid and the amount we originally had
Anthony,
budgeted for.
would you clarify that, please?
This is the project that we sent back out for, and the bid came in lower.
Yes.
When it originally came in,
Yep.
we were not pleased, sent it back out, got a lower number, and now we're awarding the bid, so we're pleased with the lower number.
So award the bid, but still keep that same amount for contingency, or just?
When we bid this project first, the bid amount came back higher
Higher.
than $103,980.
Oh, okay.
That's tied to the Board of Finance motion of referendum. We went back out to bid. The bidding we're recommended to ETT for the $97,000, but we're asking the town to still appropriate the $103,980
In case there are some.
in case there are any
funds.
change orders that
So we
are
don't have to
needed.
go back and forth and get it
Exactly.
done.
And the money will be returned, whatever.
And then
Absolutely.
whatever we don't spend out of the 103 will go back.
Yep.
Good question.
And I do want to commend Anthony and Kevin, who both worked on this, because of the time that had passed from the original bid to now, the original bid winner had actually escalated his price substantially, and we could have just taken that and moved on. But these gentlemen went back out, everyone sharpened their pencil, and the difference between that escalated price and what you're looking at now is about $30,000, if I recall. So going back out again was well worth it.
Okay, those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. I need a motion to award the bid for special transportation services for a 3-year period to Ed Advance and CT Transportation Solutions.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
Can I just ask why two different companies, they bid separately on these runs? Okay, and so they came in cheaper within the runs that you're, okay.
Most of the time.
Okay.
Okay, those in favor? And opposed? Thank you. That's unanimous, sorry. Okay, moving on to grant approvals. I need a motion to approve the Pre-K Kindergarten Transition Initiative Grant from the Connecticut Community Foundation in the amount of $1,875.
So moved?
I'll second that. Is that the same amount as last year? Does anybody, that number just rings a bell. Okay. Okay, those in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank
And
you.
thanks to Jen Henkla, who did present this item to the Operations Committee last week, for doing the work.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the stipend position of Assistant Director for the all-school musical for New Milford High School.
So moved.
I'll second. Okay. Any discussion?
I have read these 2 pages twice. I'm thoroughly confused. I mean, these school musicals take a lot of work, and my goodness, I get that. But can you explain what is actually being moved? Who's asking for an additional stipend? What is the total amount of money that we're talking about adding to the stipend?
Ellie, can you answer that?
Yes, I can. When Mr. Cap retired and left, he took with him, we had a whole void to fill, and because he performed many, many, many responsibilities. So when we approved.
Was it covered under his salary too? Is that
This-
why
no,
the
this
stipend was
came-
lower?
No, this
Okay.
came, the stipends, just so the net results of this, there's no additional money. It's just moving around because the responsibilities are gonna be shifted a little bit
Okay.
into the different positions. So we're taking a teeny bit from the the director, because he cannot do some of the responsibilities.
Okay.
So another person is picking that up. So that's the adjustment that's being made, all within the allotted stipends. We're
Okay.
just adjusting them
So you're just moving the
because
monies
of the
around among the
responsibilities.
different,
And
Exactly.
moving the
roles.
responsibilities.
Okay,
That's
okay,
it. We're
thank
just
you.
moving it around.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
Those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we have policies for first review. And again, remember, we get 2 more reviews of it before it becomes vote policy. And again, any inquiries on the policy, yes, please give the superintendent's office a call for clarification, and we'll be happy to do that for you. Okay. Moving on, I need a motion to request that the mayor and the town council acquire the necessary funding to replace the roof at the New Milford High School and schedule work in coordination with the Board of Education.
So moved.
Second, any discussion?
This motion is to request the funding through the town for the New Milford High School roof.
Mm-hmm.
Total replacement?
Well, I think that's
That's our question.
what we need to
Yeah.
talk about.
Mhm.
I'll just make a brief comment if I might, and then Mr. Monrette can fill us in on where we stand. We have gotten bids back on this for several different options. My hope is if this motion passes that there will be a joint effort, a mutual effort between this board and the various town boards to discuss the options that are reflected in those bids. To summarize them, you can replace the asphalt roof that was original construction and kind of recreate that. That's one option. Another option is to go with a standing seam metal roof. That metal roof can either be steel or aluminum, different prices. And then further, that metal roof installation can be made what is called solar ready, that certain portions of the roof would be reinforced and fitted with certain fixtures so that solar panels could be placed there either now in the course of this project or at some later date. So those are the options, asphalt or metal. If metal, what kind of metal? If metal, what do you want to prepare for future solar installations? And then last, what color should it be? We would like to move on with this. Right now, we've buttoned the roof up with temporary fix to get through the winter, but we would like to have this on the town's plate, if I can put it that way, for what I understand is a January bonding issue, so that the work could proceed.
Okay.
Kevin, did you want to add to that, or?
Well,
You did a very good job.
Oh,
summarizing
good.
for me.
Eileen?
So from our facilities committee, the feeling I got from it, that the steel option, solar ready, was the best, because you looked into the not making it solar ready, but still making steel, the difference was not, it's minimal.
Correct.
So we make it solar ready. And of course, it's always interesting in this town to get a bonding thing done, and we need the Sarah Noble roof too. So the question is, can we convince the mayor, Board of Finance, to put these all together and come up with one bonding issue in January for the steel roof and for the solar panels. And after the facilities meeting, I started thinking, we're only looking at the cost, we're not looking at the payback on this. And Kevin, I think you've worked on some of the payback issues, which you want to share with the rest of the board?
Sure. With the aid of Steve Vitello, who's in the audience, and his energy consultant, we believe the payback is in the 10-year time frame, and it will bring in approximately $92,000 to $93,000 a year in energy savings.
So in 10 years, we would have these panels, the district would own the panels. And then every year in March, Eversource sends you a check for how much you have given back into the grid. We just put this on our house. We don't own the panels, we lease them, but we know our energy costs for the next 20 years. It's going to go up 2% every year. And every March, we will get some kind of a check, we don't know yet, because it's only been there 2 months, from Eversource. And we'll get it back.
Because you're selling it back to the
Okay, so do we,
Yeah, because
so
we're selling the extra.
question is, do we have a bid for a steel roof with solar panels?
Yes, that was part of the bid package.
Yeah, it's the
Pardon me?
steel roof is the $4,215,000,
Mhm.
and the,
With possible payback, correct?
well,
Not solar ready.
You last won't- one
is
That's solar,
No,
ready,
I'm
the
at-
915 is the.
915.
Right.
So you're adding 915 to that. And you're not going to get any payback for 10 years, but the metal roof is lifetime, guaranteed lifetime. And you could put an asbestos roof on, but then you can put solar panels on that. There's a lot of weight on the roof, and you have to go through the roof, and you have the possibility of leaks where they attach the solar panels into the roofing. So the metal roof, steel roof, and the solar panels, you know, again, it's a question of how much the town is going to let you bond for.
Now, the motion tonight does not obligate you to make all of those decisions.
No.
Simply request the town to engage with you
Mhm.
to deal
Well-
with these issues.
Well, I think we need to be aware as a board,
I'm sure you're going to say what I was just going to say. Go ahead.
we need to be aware of, as a board, some of these things, you know, bonding, the timeline there, the actual quote payback or not payback, and these options. Angie and then Wendy.
I was just going to say, we're only making a recommendation.
Right.
The town council's ultimately going to decide what we do.
Right.
Personally, I'm not a solar fan. I don't think the technology is quite where it needs to be. I really question in 10 years if we're going to have to put new ones on to make them work. And I just have to say, coming into New Milford, the high school is the gem. I mean, that's the first thing you see when you come into New Milford. And I can tell you personally, I don't want to drive into New Milford and see solar panels all across the side of the high school. I also question the savings on not making it solar ready. You didn't take it out to bid, so that's just a guesstimate, and I was told last Tuesday that you had no idea what that would be. So I really question the amount of savings by not making it solar ready. And again, we're just making a recommendation, but my recommendation to the town would not be to have solar. My recommendation would be to replace with exactly what's there. I probably could be persuaded for a metal roof, but I'm not in favor of that really either.
Wendy?
Well, I have a different approach. I guess I'm looking at this, we know a few things. We know that roofs cannot come out of our operational budget. We don't have that kind of money. And therefore, we go out to bond for expenditures like that. And in order to meet the bond timeline, we'd like to get this information to the town or on the town council docket prior to January with as much feedback as we possibly can. Angie's correct, we do not have the purchasing authority, but we work in concert with the town. When we look at the original minutes from May 12th, 2015, the motion actually included that they form a building committee to work with the board on some of the feedback. But the motion ultimately passed to just find the funding along with that caveat in there with the building committee. I'm looking at it as both the roofs, because before May, we were really looking at, the Sarah Noble
That the
roof.
one, yeah.
And when I go back to as current as the November 13th facility minutes, it's still carried in the minutes of last month, the importance of the Sarah Noble roof. And that the repairs at the high school, while there's definitely a time issue, that those repairs will only last so long, they are repaired. So I will vote for both roofs to send them through for capital or for bonding. But I think that we really need to work with the town and not lose sight of the fact that the Sarah Noble roof was a high priority. It was on the top of the 5-year capital plan. It was on all of our conversations up until May. It still is on the conversation, and that roof needs to be repaired. We have a roof at the high school that has been repaired and has a time limit on it. So I just want to go and put that conversation out there that we don't know what the town can or will bond in January. And if we have to choose one, we need to put all of that out there. So I'll vote for them both, but I think that those conversations need to
Hang on
happen.
here, all right. JT,
Kevin,
well, wait, JT, Joe, Ryan. Go ahead.
I think Eileen might have mentioned this in her discussion here. Kevin, just a clarification. I see shingle, premium shingle, standing steel, standing seam, and then aluminum standing seam. What's the lifetime on those 4 different roof options?
The standing seam metal is warranted for 30 years, and Steve can help
The
me.
steel and the aluminum?
Yes, but both metal roofs are warranted for 30 years.
That's
each-
prorate? No, straight up?
It's a no
Can
doubt.
can you introduce yourself, Steve, so people know who you are?
Steve Patello with Darling Company, review. I also helped the board here with the Scottico project. We did that. Before I do answer JT's question, I just wanted to address, I'm sorry. Wendy?
Okay.
You had questions last week in the meeting, and we did go back to the contractors, and the low bid contractor's deduction was,
I did,
I
thank
believe
you.
it was like $6,500, just not to make it solar ready. The investment you made originally with the design and all the engineering
I
was
appreciate
taken
that. I did ask
care of. And then in terms of your questions for the solar, totally understand that. That can be moved to the backside of the building for basically that same price. So whether you want to see it on the front or the back, that could happen. JT, the question on the panels, it's a 30-year NDL warranty, and that is 100% for labor and material. But these types of systems have been known to be 50, 60 plus years. It'll outlast all of us. And I think a good example of that is Hill and Plain. It's a 1960s standing seam Butler building, and the evaluation I did, that was one of your best roofs. So.
In the shingle product, just to look back on that, the.
Shingle, here's the
20
thing, here's the thing that you have to consider. The original shingle that was put on was an asphalt shingle, it's a 30-year. Asphalt shingles have not worked on that building because of the wind uplift that you have. In the redesign, we did take care of another issue you had, which is ventilation. So the new install will be vented, but it still doesn't solve your wind uplift. And if you have certain pressures, it's gonna blow the shingles off like it's done already.
Right. And that's the only ramp there. I mean, just thinking of the topography there, that is the only thing that's.
And that happens on an annual basis.
Right, it just comes down the hill and.
It-
but
It's
we're
the wrong
replacing-
design for your
we're
building.
replacing quite
It's the wrong
regularly.
design for the high school, absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Steve, for.
Yep.
Okay, Joe?
I like the idea of the metal roof. I'm a big advocate of solar. However, on this building, with its age, its design, I truly question whether we're not asking for more trouble than benefit. And I don't think the benefit electrical, they're only estimates, but I don't think the benefit's there for solar on that building. But if it was ever considered, we should make sure it's prepared for it. I just don't think solar is gonna work on that building. And I don't think we get enough payback benefit on solar, and I'm a huge advocate of it. I brought it up as to why it wasn't designed into the building originally, and lo and behold, today, we're even further advanced than we were then, so it's a good thing it wasn't.
You're after me. Okay, Brian?
I guess it's my understanding that the building, the original design for the building was for a metal roof. Am I correct with that? And I think we are paying for the mistake that that metal roof wasn't put on in 1999. I have a metal roof on my house. I mean, it's obviously a different scale, but I know I'm not going to have to replace that metal roof in my lifetime again. So I think that's, I don't want to say a no-brainer, because $1 million is not a no-brainer, but it is something that really needs to be considered and voted on. And as far as solar goes, I see, if we know in 10 years we're not going to be paying electric bills for that building, that looks like a big payoff. And again, this is 10 years. The building was recommended a metal roof when it was built. What was it? I've been married 20 years. About 20. I have to go back because that's the year that the 19 years.
Those are the two memorable events, your wedding and the roof?
And the roof.
Kids don't count.
The wedding came first, so I'm
Good.
okay.
Excellent, good answer, you're on TV here.
And I think if we, I mean, I know it's a recommendation to the town, but I think if we're not gonna be paying electric bills in 10 years, we're gonna look really good on that one. And so I would vote for that too. I would approve of that, but definitely the metal roof.
Okay, I'm next.
Well, quiet.
Actually, I'd want people to see the solar panels. I would want them to see them on the front, the back, the sides. And the reason for that is it tells everybody that we're saving money. It tells people that we're preserving the environment. And it also sends a message to our future generations that we care about them, that we care about the environment. And this is a start. And I just got to say, over the summer, I got to travel a lot, and I was in Cornwall, and went to their elementary school. It's a rather small school, but the whole front of it is solar panels. And they are very, very proud of that, because it negates much of their electricity, and furthermore, they use it as a teaching tool in a variety of ways, from engineering to energy, to mathematics, to physics. I think that we have an opportunity here that we really need to think about as a community, as a whole, and say, hey, let's do this. We can do this if we choose to. And I think that's, obviously this is just advice, we're just approving it anyway, but just my thoughts on some of the things that have been said here. Tammy, Joe, Wendy.
Okay, so,
Oh, and Eileen.
I just want to be sure I get this right. So, if we opted not to go with the solar ready, it only deducts 6,500 off of the project, correct?
Yes.
Okay. But in the future, if we had said, oops, that was a mistake, it could add hundreds of thousands onto the project to make it just solar ready without the panels itself.
Yeah, if I can explain that. Basically, the panels are going to go on a light gauge framing system that goes on the building that gets screwed right into the decking. The difference is the number of fasteners to hold those framing in place. The deduction is $6,500 to not add the additional framing on those sections of the building, not the whole building, just the sections that are going to have the solar. So it's very important, if we are going to do solar now or in the future, that we decide where they're going to go now. If we don't do that, and 5 years down the line, we say, okay, we want to put solar, every panel has to come off the building, and then they have to screw in the light gauge framing, put the panels back on. So that's about $400,000 to $600,000 range to do that, because it's a lot of square footage.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I just don't want us to be penny wise and a pound foolish here. I mean, we have an opportunity to not kick this can to the next board 20 years down the road where they're gonna be sitting here putting a new roof on this building. Also, you know, solar panels are somewhat shocking maybe to most of us today because in my view, it's still a newer technology, but 5-10 years down the road, you're gonna see solar panels on roofs. It's just what's gonna be the norm. So I don't think it's gonna be that upsetting or that egregious to look at. I just think it's part of our future. And I think to not at least make it solar ready is a big mistake. And so I would like to go with the option of the solar ready steel.
Okay, again, just for everybody, myself included, it's the town.
I understand, but that would be my suggestion to the town.
Joe?
I apologize for not making myself abundantly clear to everyone. I'm a huge advocate of solar. I don't want it up on the roof, but it would be crazy for us not to make it solar ready if the town makes a decision. Dave, I'd be your biggest advocate if we wanted to put solar panels somewhere on the grounds of that property. Then 100% behind it. You put them right on the front lawn, I could care less. I think it'd be a great, I just don't want them up on the roof. But it is truly a smart thing that in case that decision's made that roof is ready now. That I agree with. I just don't think we should put them up there. I don't think we get the benefit from them. Put them down on the artificial turf. We're not using that.
Joe?
To open another can of worms.
Only in the wintertime. Wendy?
Short and sweet, I think that since we are taking recommendations, I don't think that we should go backwards and do shingle. I think that we should do a metal roof. I think that for the cost differential, where we want it placed, if we want it, or what the town decides for a $6,500 differential, I think that would be not a wise move to eliminate that from the specifications. So I hope that that this does make the bond list, and B, all of this conversation in this meeting is taking into account, and that shingle is not the way that the board is looking to go.
Thank you. Eileen?
Okay, I was on the high school building committee, and the reason we didn't do anything more than asbestos shingles at the time, we were on time and on budget, and a metal roof, that wouldn't have happened. So that's number one. And then just to clarify the warranty, so it's 30 years on the steel panels, and how much on the solar panels? How long are they guaranteed for?
It's a 25-year warranty on the solar panels.
25. Okay, so.
They're an LG panel from.
Yeah. My point is to get this started now, put the whole thing and give the whole thing to the town, let them decide what they want to do, but I would certainly put the whole package together and see what the town council comes up with. If they just do the solar
Well, we're
ready,
asking
that's fine.
for it, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we asked for, the whole package, and Sarah Noble, and see what they say.
Can we make it green for Green Wave? No.
They had
Angie?
colors.
That
I
color
have
is
a
available.
question. You commented that the shingles has an issue with the wind. So how would the solar panels not have the same issue?
Because the way that they're attached to the panel, so you got two different pressures. You got the pressure of the wind blowing the panel off, and we also considered, the engineer that did the uplift calculations considered the added pressure of the panel. And the way that they're attached to the panel, that's why we have the additional fasteners. So I'm not an engineer, but the engineering has been done to make sure that it's attached correctly.
So back to the question of the warranty. Say we have another tornado comes and rips those solar panels off. Are they 100% for 25 years?
Well,
or-
it depends up to what pressure. I mean, we did it above code. I think it's 130 mile an hour wind. But if you have a 300 mile an hour wind or 250 mile an hour wind come through, that's why we have insurance. But I can tell you with shingles, these 100 plus mile an hour winds happened much more often in the last couple of years, and they're going to continue in the pattern that we're on.
Okay, does everybody remember the original motion?
Yep.
Do you
We're
want-
asking the town to find the funding,
Yeah.
but you can reread it.
Let me reread it, okay. And that's to request that the mayor and town council acquire the necessary funding to replace the roof at the new Milford High School and schedule the work in coordination with the Board of Education.
Can I make a clarification on that motion?
Absolutely.
Maybe it's too much in the motion, but can we request, well, they know the timeline, but we're hoping that this is prior to January 2019. Maybe that's overdoing it, but that's one of the reasons.
I don't
make the
think it
bond.
is. I
Yeah?
don't think it is. I would certainly, do we have the person who made the original motion?
Eileen?
So also move to amend the motion to?
No, just
do a
retract it.
withdrawal.
Oh, retract,
Withdraw.
okay, I'll retract the
And
motion
our
then.
second, who's second?
You.
Okay.
Oh, me?
You were second.
You were second.
I'll rescind mine. And,
So what do you want to say?
So then we'll,
So now we would make the motion.
I need a motion to request that the mayor and town council acquire the necessary funding to replace the roof at New Milford High School and schedule the work in coordination with the Board of Education and to meet a deadline of January 1, 2019.
I don't know if January 1 is when they discuss it. They do it by the end of January. I would say in the next bonding cycle, January 2019.
Next bonding cycle, okay. Let me strike that to next bonding cycle of 2019.
That's fair. That's the motion. I'll move it.
a second.
Any further discussion? Those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. And thank you for your lively discussion as well. Seriously. All right, more on this roofing business. I need a motion to request, and I'm going to change, yeah.
Say it the same way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need a motion to request the mayor and town council acquire the necessary funding to replace the roof at Sarah Noble Intermediate School, schedule the work in coordination with the Board of Education, and during, what did we say, within the next, to meet the deadline of the next bonding session, 2019.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Solar panels?
No solar panels on this one, Joe.
Just a point of clarification on the timing.
That's an interesting
I
question.
don't know when the town is
We've-
going out for the bonding
Sure, I've gone
cycle
down
in
that path.
January. I don't know that schedule at all, but if we want to be prepared for it, I think the thought is whatever motions are made here would go in a memo from the superintendent to the mayor, and then the next time this could go to town council would be November 26th, to be able to go to the Board of Finance on December 12th. If it does not make those, there's not another Board of Finance meeting in December. So I don't know how that would conflict with going out to bond in January. But the way that these are being written, something would need to be on town council on November 26th.
Are you around tomorrow?
As of now, no, but
We'll work it out. We'll work it out.
Okay.
Well, I think the motion said next bonding
Next
cycle
one,
of
yeah,
2019.
yeah, yeah. So there's, obviously, we would have to, well, we haven't got a decision on this one
Are you
yet.
concerned that that
I'm con-
motion ties it in?
I just want to make everybody aware of that motion would then have to go to town council and Board of Finance
Right.
before that bonding window opens in January.
Right,
Yeah, it's a
And the only
request, it's a
opportunity to hit
recommendation.
both those marks are
Right.
town council.
right. We would send it immediately, assuming they pass.
Yep. Just
And
want to
was
bring that
that
up.
not the time frame we were shooting for to begin with?
That is, I just want to make sure
No,
the
I
board
am
knows
clear.
those dates are kind of set in
We get
stone.
it.
There's one chance for town council and one chance for Board of Finance to meet that January.
So when we have to make sure we make the agendas followed with it, letter over to the town.
Mhm.
follow
Correct.
up on it.
That's what I just
Absolutely.
wanted
Well,
to.
this will be
reinforce.
No, that's a good
communicated
point.
tomorrow
Yeah.
if you enact it.
Okay, those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, for all your information.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, I need a motion to make a request to the town that the 2016-17 liability occurred for the school calendar grievance in the amount of $371,223 go to capital reserve.
So moved.
I'll second that. Any discussion or questions? Those in favor? And opposed? And again, I will execute a memorandum to the Board of Finance and Town Council tomorrow as well. Okay, items of information and discussion. Field trip and budget drivers. Any questions thus far? Inquiries? Okay, I will now entertain a motion to adjourn. Adjourn. Yeah.
Have a nice
Those in-
holiday,
those in
everybody.
favor?
Have a nice holiday.
Okay, I'll assume that's unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.